Welcome into the 401 Conversations podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about building an all-star 401k plan team. I'm Mike Neeley with Equity 401k Consultants. I am the lead investment consultant and owner here, and also the host of the 401 Conversations podcast. And this week, we're going to talk about how to build an all-star 401k plan team to help you service, manage, and take care of your 401k plan. What a great 401k plan team will help you do, will help you minimize costs. It will help you take care of your participants and make sure that you're meeting your fiduciary duties, as well as help keep you compliant and on top of all the changing regulations and things that are happening in the world of employer-sponsored retirement plans. Things that are important are things like legislative changes, Secure 2.0. It's brought in and ushered in a huge overhaul to the retirement plan space. And because of that, there are changes that are going to be happening over the coming years. A great 401k plan team will also help you maximize the retirement plan so that you can take advantage of saving as much as you can for retirement, and your participants can take advantage of saving as much for retirement as possible, and allow you to get the most tax deduction that you can possibly get. So having a great plan in place is one thing, but also having a great team to manage that is the other component that is necessary. So there's 4 pieces to a great 401k plan for the average business that's starting one. And those pieces are your 401k plan advisor, your record keeper or plan provider, whoever's providing you the investment platform, your third-party administrator that helps you stay compliant, and a great payroll provider to make sure that you don't have any hiccups on the payroll end. Those 4 components of your team will essentially help you manage and run the plan as smoothly as possible. So let's start with some basic rundowns of each here. So a 401k plan advisor, their job is to be your advocate. Their job is to be the quarterback to the plan, to help you with ongoing service, to help you create the processes that are necessary on your end, like a fiduciary folder, to provide you meeting minutes, to help you monitor the investments and formulate an investment policy statement if that's what you're hiring them to do as well, or to help you monitor the performance reviews if they've opted to bring in an outside fiduciary to help with the investments. So that's your 401k plan advisor's primary job. Your record keeper, they're going to be the company that provides you the platform. And there's a lot of big players out there in the industry: John Hancock, Voya, Transamerica, Empower, Lincoln, American Funds, just to name a few. And so they're going to help provide the investment platform for you where your participants are going to go and interact with the plan every day. The next is your third-party administrator. Your third-party administrator, their job is compliance. They're going to help you create the plan document if you're doing a startup plan. They're going to help provide any amendments to the plan document that need to be made throughout the years. They're also going to every year make sure that they help take care of the end of the year requirements for you, the filing of the annual 5500, profit share calculations, safe harbor calculations, make sure that you get a summary plan description and that you have everything necessary to provide notices to your participants and all those fun things. And they can also be and operate as what's called a 316 administrative fiduciary, take on a lot of the liability for you. So that's your third-party administrator. That's the kind of the third rung here. And then the fourth, the payroll provider, you want to have a great payroll provider, preferably a payroll provider, especially if you're a larger business. You know, maybe you've got 30, 40, 50 participants in the plan or more. You want to make sure that you have a payroll provider that can provide 360 integration at best, meaning everything talks to each other, right? So if a participant goes into the record keeper's website on their participant account and they make a contribution change, that change will then talk to the payroll provider, and that will automatically be recognized so that it can feed back through it. It feeds back and forth. That's an ideal situation. The other is 180-degree integration. That means we're only talking one way, but it does integrate and it makes things run a bit smoother. So every time you run payroll, everything is going where it needs to go. Lastly, the third is obviously the manual, or creating essentially a payroll bridge with the company. Most providers nowadays can do these things, but having a great payroll provider that can provide these features for you is completely necessary. Why? Because you don't want to have contributions go in late. You don't want mistakes or errors to happen on the payroll. And because a lot of the, important day-to-day maintenance of a plan has to do with payroll. Every time you run payroll, you're making sure that participant contributions are getting where they're supposed to go, so that you don't have missed deferrals. You don't have things that, come up that will create more expensive issues and things that you have to fix because these things were missed in payroll. Plus, when it comes to most things, the data that feeds over to the record keepers from payroll will also help track eligibility in those things. So having a great payroll provider on the team will certainly help. So let's kind of dive into how to build a great 401k plan team. I want to preface this first with the idea that I, as an advisor to plans, I am not a fan of the bundled approach, meaning I like to keep all the pieces separate. So rather than the payroll company running the payroll, the 401k plan, the third-party administration to the plan, even providing some investment advisory services, things like that, I'm not a fan of that. And I'll tell you why. Because when it comes to potentially needing to make changes down the road, and you probably will have to make changes at some point, or somebody will retire from the business, or a third-party administrator, somebody will drop the ball, and then there's a change that has to be made. It is a lot harder to rip apart a bundled plan and change to a plan with all the pieces separate than it is to already start with the pieces being separate. And in my opinion, while it might cost you a little bit more to have all the pieces separate, what ends up happening is, in the long run, it makes for what I think to be a smoother plan management process. And that cost that you make up for in having experts in one specific thing, I think adds a lot more value to the plan in the long run. So, payroll providers are great at payroll, but they're not necessarily in the record keeping business or in the third-party administrative business, right? A great third-party administrator, that's all they focus on, is third-party administration and compliance and making sure that you stay compliant. A great record keeper that's outside of payroll, that doesn't do any of those other functions, that's what they do. They specifically provide record keeping and investment platform services. Same thing with 401k plan advisors. A dedicated 401k plan advisor, 401k financial advisor, is going to bring expertise to the table that maybe your average investment advisor is not going to be able to bring to the table, because they don't understand the rules and regulations that go into running a employer-sponsored benefit, and being on top of those regulations with the Department of Labor and the IRS, and making sure that you're staying compliant under ERISA and meeting your fiduciary obligations. So that's kind of a long preface into my philosophy and what I believe to be the way to build a 401k plan all-star team. So let's talk about how to do this. So where to start? I think the best place to start is to find a dedicated 401k plan advisor. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, a 401k plan advisor is your advocate and your quarterback. And if they're dedicated in this plan space, they will certainly know or have relationships with providers that they can bring to the table to help you build the 401k plan from the outset. So step one is find a good 401k plan advisor. So then your next question you're thinking is, well, gee, how do I find a good 401k plan advisor? Well, you can start with Google. Or if you're working with a financial advisor, you can ask if they have the expertise. You can ask if they have somebody in their office that has the expertise in helping with a 401k plan. Those are kind of the places that you start. If you have friends that run a business and they've got a 401k plan, you can ask them who they use. Who's their 401k plan advisor? And there's also things that you can look for as far as designations or those letters that come after their name on their business card or their website. Things like CPFA, Certified Plan Fiduciary Advisor. That is a designation that is put on by NAPAR, the National Association of Plan Advisors. You could look for AIF, or Accredited Investment Fiduciary. They will have the expertise and the knowledge to help you manage the investments in a 401k plan. QKA, that one you don't see with many 401k plan advisors, but that is the qualified plan administrator, I believe, or 401k plan administrator designation. So there are specific designations that you can look for that will help guide you in finding the right 401k plan advisor for your plan. Now, once you've found that, the next part is to find a good third-party administrator. So this component may not always be the least expensive part of the puzzle, but what you're going to pay for when you pay for a great third-party administrator is somebody who really knows compliance and can help make sure that you manage the plan effectively and properly. So again, a good 401k plan advisor will bring a couple to the table. You can actually, you can Google third-party administrator for 401k plan, and you will find a bunch of names that pop up. Reach out to them. You can interview them. They're going to want to gather some information, and they'll help provide you with that. And also, a great third-party administrator is going to be solid in helping you design the plan to help you maximize everything most effectively, not only for yourself, but for your participants in the plan. So that is a very critical step. So making sure that you find a great third-party administrator is number 2. Number 3, of course, is then going out to market and finding a good record keeper. Once you have a good TPA and a good 401k plan advisor, they'll go out to market and get you some quotes from different record keepers like Voya or Transamerica or John Hancock or Empower, and they'll bring that information back. You can figure out, based on their platform, all the bells and whistles, things that you need, what might be a great platform to work with. And the truth is, if you're a startup plan, there's probably going to be, some that are more favorable from a pricing standpoint when it comes to being a startup plan. Some record keepers are going to be there for when you get bigger, and they'll price you better when you have a lot of assets in the plan and good average account balances. But at the outset, you get quotes and that'll come back. And so at this point, you've got 3 very crucial components put in place. And that is 401k plan advisor, your third-party administrator, and now your record keeper. And the last component is to make sure that your payroll provider can work with whatever record keeper that you've got, or at least at a very minimum, understanding what the payroll process will look like when you work with specific record keepers. So one of the things that you can do is, when you're taking out to market with record keepers, you can interview the record keepers and you can ask them and say, hey, how do you work with such and such payroll provider? Because this is who we use. This is our in-house payroll provider. Or this is who we outsource payroll to, or, this is how we do it. What can you provide to help make sure that this process runs smoothly and efficiently, and it's easy to train either our team, or it's easy for you as the business owner every time you run payroll to do that. As you can see, building a strong 401k plan all-star team takes these different components. But if you do this right, this team will be with you for the long haul. Even when it comes to the point in time where you have to benchmark your providers to make sure that the fees are reasonable, to make sure that you're getting the best for the services that are out there. Majority of the time, there are changes that you can make without needing to necessarily change out a specific component. But as I said from the outset, I'm not a big fan of bundling, simply because it's a lot harder to rip something apart than it is to really focus in on creating that team at the outset that will allow you to have a great 401k plan benefit for you and your team. I want to close with saying this. Make sure that when you start this process, that you document and keep all of the things that you get from each of the pieces of the puzzle, so that they can go in your fiduciary folder as you build that, if you're a startup plan, or if you're an existing 401 plan looking to rebuild your team or make changes, that you have a documentation of that process to also show that you're meeting your fiduciary obligations. If you need help or you have questions about your existing providers, or you're thinking about making changes, feel free to reach out to me via email. Of course, you guys know my email is always at the end of this video. You can, of course, find us on LinkedIn, where we do a lot of posting of this content. You can send a message there, or you can even call the office directly, and we would be happy to help walk you through the process and help you sort those questions out. So again, I am Mike Neeley with Equity 401k Consultants, host of the 401 Conversations podcast, always here every week to help you elevate your 401k plan experience. And I will look forward to seeing you on the next pod.